Hi guys, my name is David Jaffee. I am with the Best Stock Strategy channel. And if you're watching this from Gerald's channel, then I just wanted to briefly introduce myself. Jerry, can you please introduce yourself for my viewers, and then we can kick it back to myself for a brief introduction.
Sure. So my name is Gerald Summer, and I was born and raised in Austria, which is a small country located in Central Europe. And I'm actually a high school dropout. So I want to add that here because oftentimes people think, how did this guy get started and why did he get started so early? Well, this is why. So I dropped out of high school in the first year, and it was because I didn't like the instruction following in school. And so I already knew from an early age on that I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so the fact that my parents stuck me in a school I didn't want to go to, it was really not my decision, led to the end result that I started a marketing agency in Austria at the age of 21.
I think that in the past, people will be judged negatively for dropping out. I know that when I graduated from high school, if you didn't go to college, then you were quote unquote considered a loser. But I think that things have changed. In fact, I recently told my wife that I don't even want my children to go to college unless they want to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something that necessitates it. Because I feel like if I didn't go to college, and again, it's very difficult because you can't A/B test your life, but I feel like that I would have been better off not going to college, saving the few $100,000 and also saving the 4 years of your life, because in those 4 years you can create something that's incredible while also adding to your personal experience. As far as my background, I did graduate from Cornell, which it's a good school, but I worked really hard and I actually paid as opposed to getting paid for the time and effort that I put in there. I then worked as an investment banker on Wall Street. I interned at Morgan Stanley, worked at CIBC World Markets in their Industrial Growth and Services Group, and then also at Petsky Prunier, which is a boutique M&A, a mergers and acquisitions firm. Then I throughout this time, I was also trading options, and I just feel like trading options and trading in general and educating people about financial, personal finance and things of that nature is extremely important. I also, one of the things that drew me to Gerald's channel is that before I got married, I used to travel a lot. Like I've been to Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, etc. So I always really like some of the, watching some of the travel channels and seeing if their interests and their opinions align with some of my experiences.
I think you wanted to get my perspective as to why I decided to move to Asia at the age of 22. I think you wanted to hear my story there, right? I had that vision, how people had that vision board at home. I had that too. And my vision board at home had tropical beaches located in Southeast Asia. And I had exact figures on that vision board that I wanted to realize in my business. So I said, okay, by the age of 25, I wanted to have made so much money. And my first goal was to just create survival income, which was like $1,000 a month, which would be sufficient for me to sustain a decent lifestyle in Southeast Asia. So it took me 18 months, David, before I sold my first website on Flippa. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that site.
Yep.
But it's a site where you can sell a website that is monetized through, say, AdSense, through services. It really depends on what your income generation model is for that site. And so the first big income that I had was from one site that I sold back then. And with that income, I was like, wow, it's just a door that opened so many opportunities to me, which led again to the fact that I moved to Asia. And I'll never forget the initial time that I had in Asia, which was really, really thrilling. So imagine I was still like half broke, didn't have a whole lot of experience either, no experience living outside of Europe at all. And so I was like, cool, I got this friend, we've been working together. And I was like, hey, why don't you come over, live with me in Malaysia? We can live together, we can work together. I'm like, wow, what a great deal this gentleman offered me. I'm like, I would be a moron to reject this deal, like considering, how much I had to gain. And I think it's very important in life that you always weigh these options, how much you can gain, how much you can lose, and then make a decision for yourself as to whether the risk to reward ratio makes sense or not.
And so you live where in Asia specifically did you move to? It seems like Malaysia and then potentially Thailand as well, or where else?
So, yeah, so David, when I initially arrived in Malaysia, I settled down on the island of Borneo. There is
Mhm.
a city called Kuching, and Kuching is a name that's in Malay, and it actually means the city of the cats. So the people who have lived in Malaysia, they probably have heard of that city before. It's not the first place people would go to, let's say a digital nomad, an internet entrepreneur, when they like decide to move to Asia. It's not their first destination. They would rather go to Bangkok, Thailand, or they would rather go to Bali, Indonesia. So I was fortunate to have found such a remote, obscure location thanks to the business partner I was able to acquire before I moved to Asia. So he made me this phenomenal offer that I was unable to reject. And that's how I ended up there. And we talked about this already, David. I had a fantastic time living there. I enjoyed life so much, and we had so much progress. And the happiest moments I had in my life, I don't know about you, David, but the happiest moments that I had in my life were moments when I had this massive progress. Even if it's incremental progress that's almost invisible, it's so powerful when you have that, when you work on the vision and purpose that you believe in. And so I had that back then, and I always say it to everyone when people talk to me now about Latin America or Europe. I'm like, the best time that I ever had was in Asia.
We'll get back to Asia in a little bit. I wanted to ask you regarding what you're doing now. How are you currently helping people? Is it primarily through like sharing your experiences, second citizenships? You've made some videos about like dating and things of that nature. What are your thoughts regarding like what's your primary goal with your channel and how you're helping people now?
Okay, so Nomad Elite is a relocation channel. And yes, we help people with residence permits, citizenships, long-term visas. We're helping them find apartments in certain countries. So we have people in certain countries. We promote countries that we wholeheartedly believe in. And so we have some countries that we really like. And the reason why we like these countries, and if you have been watching our videos on the Nomad Elite channel, you know that the countries that we are promoting right now are countries that are very liberal, right? Very liberal countries that welcome foreigners with open arms. And that's important because, yes, we want to help you move to a new country, establish yourself. We have all kinds of people, right, from all kinds of backgrounds. So we help these people find the place that's ideal for them at the time they're at in their life. And so the countries we're focusing now are Paraguay, Uruguay, Bulgaria, and Italy. So we're focusing on these countries now. I think you also wanted to ask me like how we're different, because that's always a very important question. So many people are offering similar services, sometimes almost identical. Like you can almost not tell that there's a difference, right? Do you want me
Yeah,
to elaborate a bit on that?
yeah, I mean, definitely the other person I mean, I love Raphael's channel, but I know that the big elephant in the room is primarily Nomad Capitalist, Andrew Henderson. I wanted to know like how you're different from him and like what your opinion is regarding like what his the services that he offers.
And so how we are different is really a really important point here. And how we are different is that we are considering the stage at which the person is at in their life. And we are doing it more in a like friend to friend way, because when you move abroad, David, what's important to you? Let's say you've never been abroad, you've never been in Thailand, and you go on YouTube and you see the videos that people are doing on Thailand. Wow, you're like, oh, this is a paradise. There's nothing wrong there. It's like just positives, 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 no negatives. It's all about the good stuff, right? So YouTubers love to sugarcoat. You know that term very well. And so we're not doing that, not even with the countries we're promoting. For instance, when people are interested in Paraguay and they ask us what's going on there with citizenship, we're like, well, it's difficult to become a citizen of Paraguay because you have to surrender your current citizenship. And there are a few exceptions there. So we're honest about that. First of all, we don't want to mislead people. It's a big decision to go abroad. It takes resources, it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes energy. Moving from one continent to another is a huge deal to most people. And I think the worst thing that can happen to people is that they're being purposely misled just because some greedy millionaire wants to make more money. And so we're not doing that. And we're not doing that because we believe in ethics, we believe in morals, we believe in doing the right thing. And from the response we've been getting from our clients, we know that we're doing the right thing because they're like, wow, nobody else has the courage to address these issues on social media, but you have done it. And so they're very happy about a company that's finally transparent about the positives, the negatives, the whole package. So that's how we are different. And we are not afraid to share the truth on the internet because, again, we want to serve people. And the most important thing of all is that we want people to get to the place where they think they can create the life that they want. And you can only get to the point, David, when you're honest about the whole place, like what it offers and what it doesn't offer.
And Jerry, the primary benefits, from my opinion, and but you know better than I do, regarding second citizenship are one, the tax savings from the arbitrage opportunity between living in a developed nation like the United States versus saving potential taxes in like Paraguay or Uruguay. The second would be the cost of living decrease, and potentially I guess that the third would also be hand in hand with the cost of living adjustment would also be like the increased quality of life. Are those the primary benefits, like the savings in tax and the increased quality of life due to like the lower cost of living?
I mean, the points that you just pointed out here, I mean, they are very crucial. And I would say they are the main points for a few groups of people. People move because they're tired of the high taxes in the West, right? So that's a big decision maker for the people that are trying to get out of North America, Western Europe. They're using this as like the main reason to escape the high taxes back home. It's completely understandable. You know, if you have to give up 55 to 57% of your income, you know, you can't be happy about that. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money that you have to surrender to your government. So yeah, those are the main reasons. So there are people that are entrepreneurs, they have a really good income, they have a high income, they're paying too much in taxes. And so they're looking to establish tax residency in a different country. And so the question is, where can they do it? And so this is a big deal, but we're also working with like families, people who would like to move to a country that's safer. They would like to move to a country that's more communal because where they're living right now, maybe to them it's too individualistic, right? If they're living in an individualistic society that they don't want to be living in, so they value community life more than in an individualistic society. And because of that, we can also help families, right? But then there's also retirees that are leaving for all kinds of different reasons, right? As you also said, David, they are looking to leave to improve their living costs. And oftentimes, right, or almost always, if you improve your cost of living, if you can lower it, you can also improve your standard of living because you have greater purchasing power, right? And so we're really helping people from all kinds of different backgrounds. So we're not just focusing on like entrepreneurs, investors. We're really focusing also on average people.
Regarding briefly how I'm unique for Jerry's viewers, basically my channel and my experiences, they tend to lean towards personal finance and also health. I definitely believe that it's very important for people, especially now where the unemployment rate is relatively high, to watch what they spend and to not spend money to buy things in order to impress people that they don't even care about. I think that being relatively ascetic and not spending money on things to live like a quote unquote fake Instagram lifestyle is extremely important. Additionally, I believe
Right.
that personal finance and making good decisions is vital to your overall well-being and your future. I also believe that trading options is a great way for people to develop a quote unquote side hustle and to earn, anywhere from like 2 to 3% a month, while simultaneously reducing the drawdowns and the volatility that's inherent in many people who try to take an active lifestyle or try to take an active approach to trading, where some days or some years they can be up like 40%, and other years they'll be down like 40, 50%. So we really focus on earning like a few percent every single month consistently, while simultaneously decreasing the drawdowns and the portfolio volatility. And many people, they can trade while they're traveling. So there's a lot of synergies there. They can trade while they're living in a different country. They can trade while they're working another job, because realistically speaking, you can make a few percentage points every single month with about 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, after you've learned the strategy and after you've learned how to trade options. So, there's a lot of synergies that go along with like trading and optimizing and decreasing your tax basis and decreasing your cost of living.
You articulated it very well, David. I just wanted to interrupt here for a moment. We have talked about trading before, and I've briefly shared my personal experience in short-term trading, like day trading. And David, it hasn't been too good for me, right? I mean, I have not done well. So you told me that my result is actually very typical. And so I wanted to ask you, like, what do you recommend to an average person that is looking to start like a side hustle, as you also like to call it, right? If they're looking to start a side hustle, how can they get started with trading in the most effective way possible, avoiding a lot of the unnecessary mistakes that the average person makes? For instance, like me, I signed up to signal services that cost me a lot of money, David. They just didn't turn positive. In fact, if I would have looked at the trades that they provided to me and I would have done the exact opposite, I would have made money. But I didn't do it. I just followed what they promised to a T. I wanted to ask you, because you're an expert trader, you make money with it. Now, what would you recommend to somebody listening now, what they should do, like the kind of footsteps they should follow to make sure that they are not going to lose the money that the average person would lose, that signs up to a service that claims that, they can help you generate so and so much profit every month? What are your
Well,
thoughts on that?
I think the most important thing is not to day trade. I don't have like any crystal ball or magic lamp or anything like that. If I day traded, then I would lose money as well. In fact, there have been numerous research studies out there. There was a study put out from Brazil, which I think looked at about 360,000 day traders, or maybe, I think that might have actually been the study from Taiwan that looked at 360,000 day traders. Basically, both the study from Brazil and the study from Taiwan essentially corroborated the same thing, that 99.8% of day traders lose money, and those that don't end up earning less than minimum wage. There are a few profitable day traders on YouTube, but the reason why they're profitable is that they primarily front run their followers, where they'll buy a low float stock before, and then they'll pitch it to their followers, who will then bid it up, and then they'll sell it back to their followers. So I definitely do not believe in day trading at all. I think that for the average person, simply buying a quality ETF or an index fund would be amazing. Buying like the SPY or an SCHD or QQQs, that would be great. You can buy it and then you can just not touch it if you want. And in general, that'll probably yield probably on average about like 5 to 7% a year. I know that over the past 10 years, the returns have been higher, but my gut feeling is, and I came out with a recent video, I don't think that the future is going to be as bullish as the past is for the US equity market. If you wanted like a relatively low risk way, you can just simply buy an index fund. Another thing, that the strategy that I primarily teach is kind of similar. It's kind of comparable, where we will sell options. We'll primarily sell put options on market leading stocks and indices. So whereas I said previously, you can buy an index like QQQs or SPYs, etc. Here, by selling a put option, you can collect premium, essentially turn yourself into an insurance company. And if the QQQs are trading at about like 290, you can agree to buy the QQQs at 275, and then you can collect money up front. So by doing this, you can collect money up front, collect the option premium, and then if the market collapses, or if the market pulls back by about 10%, then you can either manage that position, or you can simply agree to purchase it at 275. Whereas previously, if you had bought it, you would have had to buy it at the market price at 290. but now you're able to purchase it at about 275, at which point you'll get a better entry point. If you're going to do that for a stock, we really only focus on market leading stocks in order to reduce the portfolio volatility. Underlyings in stocks such as Amazon or Microsoft or JP Morgan, or even something which has relatively low volatility, like a Dollar General, or like a Waste Management, or like a Raytheon, like an RTX or Lockheed Martin, which has government contracts, so it has predictable revenue. We definitely stay away from stocks like meme stocks, or even something like Tesla, because even if you made a lot of money on Tesla, if you traded too large, then 2022 would have essentially bankrupted you when Tesla fell like 70%. So the name of the game is to minimize losses and reduce portfolio volatility. And if you're able to do that, then a natural consequence of that is going to be that you'll earn a few percentage points every single month on average. Now, all that being said, it's not complicated. We don't try to make it seem like we don't use like technical analysis or magical patterns or anything like that. We basically just stick to the most solid and the most consistent underlyings that have relatively low volatility. And by focusing on indices and also large cap market leading stocks, we found that that is the best way to beat the market consistently, while also reducing portfolio volatility. But if you don't necessarily want to learn options trading, then my recommendation would be to just keep it very simple and to just invest your money in an index fund and then focus on something else. Regarding what countries you believe are best, I think that you intimated that. You said Paraguay, Uruguay, Bulgaria, and Italy, correct?
Well, it's like a matter of, like what we believe in right now, what seems to
Yeah.
be the best option. And you kind of know what my experience has been in Asia. I wasn't able to completely elaborate it on this conversation, but we are now focusing on people that want to establish themselves in a different part of this world. And what you need to establish yourself in a different part of this world is openness, right? You want to know whether the country wants to receive immigrants or not. And how you can do that, I mean, how you can determine that is when you look at the country's immigration policies. And if you see, okay, I can move to this country as European, North American, and I can become a citizen, I can own land, I can start a company and fully operate a company without interference from a local individual, then that's liberty right there. And so we're focusing on countries that help people achieve exactly that, establish a long-term presence overseas where they know, okay, and 5 years later, 5 years have passed, they won't get kicked out of the country like we have seen happening during the pandemic in certain countries in the East. And so we make sure that we take a look at the countries that really value immigrants, and there are not that many countries that actually do that, right? There are some countries, and some countries are better than others. But David, very few countries offer the full package of liberty. And these are the countries that we are focusing on. And so that's what I recommend to people, especially if you're already a bit older. And when I say a bit older, in the internet world, I'm saying like 30 plus. When you're in your 20s, you're not really that considerate when it comes to a lot of things, and you don't have to be, because we live longer lives now. We live to be 80 years old, some of us, if we're lucky, 90 years old. And it's not so important anymore to get married in your 20s, but it's really important to maximize your earning potential in your 20s so you can enjoy life a lot more in your 30s, your 40s, and 50s. But once you get to that point when you are financially stable, or you're really looking to establish yourself in a different country because you have the resources, the financial resources to do so, that's where we say, you know what, okay, look at Paraguay, Uruguay, look, for instance, at Italy. These countries are liberal, and they're just great options for a person or even a family that wants to settle down there long term.
Awesome. And then I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're saying that while you believe Asia is becoming less desirable, some of the reasons are that they are less welcoming to immigrants, It's very difficult to own land there. It's difficult to open a business without having a domiciled or a citizen be a partner there, which is obviously risky to you. And then finally, some of them are just simply not offering citizenships even to very successful immigrants. Did I miss anything, or is there anything that I said that you disagree with?
I agree with what you said. You articulated well. The main question you, as a viewer, have to answer for yourself is, what are your long-term goals in a country? There's so many people that just want to nomad, right, throughout Southeast Asia, and to them, owning property is just less of an importance than to a person that's, say, in his 40s or 50s that is already financially stable, yet they want to find a new home where they can settle down. And so to them, land ownership is pretty important, right? It's very high up on the list. So it's really important to each person here listening that you guys know where you're at in your life. I am not saying that Asia, is a place you should avoid at all costs. I think it depends on what point you're at in your life. Where are you at in your life? Are you looking to just live in countries that offer an extremely low cost of living? Are you looking to network? Because for these things, many destinations in Southeast Asia make perfect sense. If you want to live in a like-minded community, you can achieve that in places like Bali, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, Chiang Mai, potentially also in the Philippines, some places. So these opportunities exist. And if you are at that point in life where that's important to you, just to network, to like mingle with people there that share the same lifestyle, that share the same mindset, and that also at the same stage in their lives, I think it can make perfect sense to do that. But then there are people that have like moved on to a different cycle. Life is all about cycles, and the cycle of your life changes every so often. Like the cycle you were in when you were like 22 might be completely different than the cycle you're in today, 15 years later, 20 years later. People value different things at different stages in their lives. And so what I'm trying to say is, oh, no, you should not avoid Asia at all costs. But once you have reached the next cycle and you say, okay, I have now graduated, I have developed myself in that environment to the point where I'm seeking to be in a new environment that offers a different value, that has, more to offer in areas where Asia just, cannot deliver for whatever reason. But if you want to establish yourself in a country long term, it's really important that you look at the country's immigration policies, how liberal that country is, residency, citizenship, land ownership, company ownership, whether you're welcome. Because at the end of the day, we won't be changing locations all the time. We might be doing this for a couple of years' time, but what happens when you're older? What are you going to do? Where do you want to be? And so, yes, David, I mean, these are the questions that I recommend people to ask themselves to determine what makes sense to them personally, depending on the stage of their life that they're at right now.
And real quick, before we move on, I think it's also very important to visit multiple cities in a country, because when I visited Thailand, I wasn't necessarily that enthusiastic or that impressed with Bangkok. But then when I went to Chiang Mai or Koh Samui or Koh Phangan, I actually really liked the beaches there. And I also liked in Koh Phangan how you could just basically walk into people's garages and then they would serve you a home cooked meal for like 100 baht. It was just an amazing experience. So what are, briefly, I know that we talked about it before, but would you say that the primary benefits to obtaining a second citizenship, it seems like the primary benefit is to decrease your tax burden and also to, to improve your quality of life. Is that accurate?
I'd say the answer is it always depends. Now, you, David, are an American, and Americans abroad are still tied to the IRS. Right? As long as you have
Unless
that
they were
golden
right?
passport, right? As long as you have that golden passport, I mean, an American passport is pretty strong and it has a lot of value. So there are people in our industry, we're talking top leaders, that love to talk very bad about the United States. I mean, the United States is a great place to start business. It's one of the best places to do that. I mean, the amount of money that you can make, the business opportunities you have in the US, you will likely never have it in Asia ever, because there's so many people in the US, with so much skill and money and innovation that you may not have in Asia for a long time. And so what makes sense to you, David, might not make sense to a guy from France or to a guy from like Mexico. Now, for you, right? I mean, if you want to reduce your tax burden, let's say you're ready to surrender US citizenship. My name is David. I want to get out of the US. I want to establish myself in a country that I can call home. So I want to obtain citizenship in that country, and I want to untie myself from the IRS. If that's what you want to do, then you might very well find a place that allows you to do that, so that when you are abroad and, there is the foreign income exclusion. And I think you know how that works, right, David? Once you earn above a certain amount, even if you haven't spent a single day per year in the US, you might still have to pay taxes back to the US government. And the US is one of the two countries in the world that does that. There aren't that many countries in the world that do that. And so for an American who wants to live abroad and who wants to untie himself or herself from the American tax system, it might make a lot of sense to obtain citizenship in a country like Mexico, in a country like Portugal, Italy. Because with a European passport, for instance, with a European passport, you don't have to undergo the same tyranny that an American has to undergo with an American passport. As a European living abroad, and let's say you're not a resident of that country or you're not a resident of any EU country, you do not have to file a tax return each year. You just don't have to do that. There's really only one country in the world that asks you to do that. I don't know about that one country in Africa. I don't know the process, so I can't comment on that. But I'd say it always depends. And whether you should surrender your citizenship, I think it's a very, very personal choice. And you should think really deeply about it because it's a decision that you may not be able to revert at a later stage in your life.
My wife, she tells me all the time how fortunate she is to live in the United States because where she was born, there were not opportunities for her to be entrepreneurial and to be, and she calls the United States a meritocracy. And I understand that every country has its problems. No place is perfect, but where she's from, you basically have to know someone and you have to have very strong contacts in order to even receive a regular job, like working as a bank teller. You need to call in a favor to your contacts in order to get that opportunity. Whereas my wife, during her first year in the United States, made a lot of money by opening up her own business. So yeah, definitely, even if you are living in the United States, from a comparative perspective, from my wife, as she always tells me, because she wasn't born in the United States, she really loves living in the United States. And I definitely would not buy into all the people who constantly bash and they only tell you and feed you the negativities and the negatives that go along with US citizenship. So briefly about, from your experience, what are some of the challenges that you see from some of the clients that you work with living abroad?
What a great question. The main issues that people encounter while living abroad, I think it's always up to the individual. Oftentimes, from what we see, and also talking about myself, a lot of it comes down to proper preparation and knowledge. It's everything. If you're prepared, if you are informed about the place where you're moving to, you're less likely to encounter problems. Here's my disclaimer, though. I'm not saying you won't encounter any problems because you certainly will. Whenever you move to a new country, you expose yourself to a new culture, to a new system, to a new government, to a new way of living. And so I think the main problem that people make often is that they believe the place they're moving to is precisely the same as the place that they have left before they arrived. That's just not how it works. I always advise people to embrace the culture where they're going to. Yes, when you move to a place like Kuala Lumpur, yes, you can live in a very foreign-oriented community where you have like-minded people around that speak English, that might be in the same line of business. Yes, you will have that, but I think it's equally important that you try to assimilate with the locals. Just try to emerge a little bit, learn the local language. I mean, think about it. If you live, let's say I live in Italy, I'm Italian, and people come over to my country, and they speak Korean or Japanese. I mean, it's kind of weird for them to expect me to know their language. I know that English is a little bit different because every person speaks some English at least. At least in Asia, Latin America is different. But I just think that open-mindedness is very important when you go to a new place. And while you don't have to speak the local language perfectly, I think it's very important that you make some effort, even if you just learn a few words, even if you can just greet a person. The locals will appreciate it, and so I think that's very important. And then another point is, of course, the preparation side. Like I've seen people move to places they knew nothing about. That can be good, it can be bad. It depends on, again, on what stage in your life you're at. If you are at a stage in your life where you're in your 20s, you're very adventurous, you embrace challenge, it's a different mindset than somebody who wants to move abroad, let's say with a family, somebody who is in his 30s, 40s. And so I think it's really important that you inform yourself before you move to a place, because there's going to be unexpected surprises everywhere. Knowing what you can do in a place, and that's actually the third thing I wanted to mention here, are the local laws. Like people oftentimes are not aware of the local laws of a place where they feel like, okay, whatever is right to do back home. For instance, if you go to the UAE, and you are a woman, you got to adjust to that environment brutally. Like you cannot behave like you do back home. I mean, I'm talking not about behaving, but just living life. If you go to certain places in the UAE, you have to wear a hijab, so you are accepted there by the locals, by the culture. And so it's really important that people inform themselves about the whole picture, the laws, the standards, because when you set the expectations right, and you keep your expectations also a bit lower, because oftentimes people have very high expectations of a place and they think, okay, it's going to be the same standard as back home. Once they arrive there, they see it's actually quite different. So I think these are some of the things that I have seen from people that I know, from people I've worked with, and obviously also myself. I've also been ignorant in the past, and it hasn't served me too well. So I had to adjust my thinking.
Okay, amazing. And to summarize or to finalize, can you just briefly take like 30 seconds to a minute and talk about like the services that you offer and how people can get in contact with you? And then I'll do the same, and then we'll wrap up the call.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, Nomad Elite is a relocation company. So we help people with all kinds of options, right? If you want to move to a place like Paraguay, we can help you with accommodation. We can help you get a long-term visa. We can help you find an apartment, right? So we offer the full service for the places, the countries we're working with right now. And if you want to get more info, it's probably the easiest to go to our YouTube channel, Nomad Elite. Or if you want to request free info, you can go to Nomad Elite, so with the S at the end, .com.
Fantastic. And again, my name is David Jaffee, and you can subscribe to the Best Stock Strategy YouTube channel if you want to receive free information about trading and you want to kick the tires and receive some valuable information that's not going to cost you anything. Then you can go to my website, beststockstrategy.com. That's beststockstrategy.com. And then you can just enter in your email address and you'll receive some valuable free information. Jerry, I want to thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry that we had to cut it short. I actually have a flight tomorrow, but we'll definitely do this again. We hope that you guys appreciate the information that we're sharing with you and that you found this information valuable.